Welcome to the Real Talk podcast with Dalton B. Embracing the messy, imperfect, and the deeply human aspects of life through the lens of God's love and grace. Wherever you're listening from, I'm so glad you're here to get real and talk about it. All right, welcome back to another episode of Real Talk. It's been a while since I've been able to record. Life's just been really busy. Life has been lifing, as they say. And today I have a very, very special guest. Ooh, yes. If you could see him now, he's being his humble self as always. I have a very special guest here today. His name is Gary Alley. Most of you may know him. How you doing today, Gary?
Doing very well. I'm honored to be here. My voice is a little crackly today, but I'll do the best I can to try to make something happen.
What's going on with your voice?
I don't know. I felt fine for the last couple of weeks, but during that time period, there's been days, a day, 2 or 3 days like today, where it's just don't work. Yeah. So I don't know. I coughed a lot last night. So I don't know. I don't know. But I'm not sick. So whoever's listening here is not going to get. I'm not sick. You're not going to get sick.
It's not coming through.
It's not coming through. And in fact, what I've discovered in my life, I'm usually too mean for germs to get on me anyway. So I think we're good. We'll power through.
Well, I'm glad you're here.
And, I'm honored to be here.
So I don't want to take up too much of your time today, but there's a topic that that my audience and the ministry that I feel called to, that I like to talk about a lot, and it's on the subject of authenticity. I feel like in the world we have become, and I say the world just as a whole, where we have social media, we have all of these different types of things that allow us to be whoever we want to be. What is the value that you've seen, or what are you seeing in the world now when it comes to authenticity, whether we're actually being authentic or whether we are conforming, or what's going on? What are you seeing?
Wow, that's a great question. So my first gut answer is simply this. I think the majority of the people, we could argue what majority means, but the majority of the people are not authentic because we have put in their hands tools for them not to be authentic. Most people communicate from behind a keyboard now. They communicate on podcasts. They communicate on Instagram and all the social platforms. And you can be, as you said, whoever you want to be. And so our culture has taught us to be whoever we want to be on a given time for a given audience. So the idea of authenticity is not an idea that people implement in their lives often, I think, in today's culture. Now, that's just my take on things. All you got to do really is watch news services, watch videos, and you'll see what I'm talking about. We hide behind microphones and keyboards, so much so that you and I are around students a lot. You will see them not talking to each other eyeball to eyeball. I think we've lost that art. We need to regain that, but you'll see them sitting side by side, texting.
Probably the person that they're sitting next to.
Oh, it is. Absolutely it is.
Yeah.
But they're not talking. So that was a long answer to your short question. But I think in general, our culture has gotten away from the idea of being authentic. I don't think we want to be authentic.
Why?
Because there are things in our lives that we know about that no one else knows about, and we want to keep those hidden. We want people to see us. We want to craft and form the way that people see us, all the way to whatever detail we can. And we use, because we have them, we use whatever tool is available to us.
It's almost like we can show whatever side of us that we want to see.
And we show different sides.
Depending on
the audience.
What's the fear? What are we so afraid of? Because it's obviously is that what it's coming down to, is a fear?
I think it's partly a fear I think there's two levels of fear. One level of fear is simply this: we fear what others will think if they knew who we really were. That's one level. I think we fear ourselves. I think as long as we can act out in different ways, we don't have to be quite as honest with ourselves about who we really are. We know who we are. There's parts about all of us that we don't like about ourselves. And so we fear that for ourselves. We fear ourselves at times, I believe.
That's really interesting. Why then, what are we afraid of?
We are afraid of our imperfections. Example, there's a large industry that's grown up around plastic surgery. I'm not dissing anybody, but Botox, the whole shooting match. Why? We're hiding imperfections. We were made one way. We don't like that way. And so culture creates for us images of what perfection looks like, and that's what we go for.
So we were created one way, and that way was obviously the way that we should have been, that we were designed.
Yeah.
Each of us individual.
Yeah.
I was created completely different than you were created.
Yeah. That's probably a good thing, by the way.
Yeah, that's what I was about. That's what I was alluding to there. For the flip side, though,
yeah,
I wish I could be like you.
No, you don't.
But what is the value that you see in us being authentic? So if here, let me reword that. If we were created this way for a specific purpose, obviously there's value there. The enemy convinces us that this way that we were created is not good enough, that we have to be like Tommy or Sally or Johnny. There's value, obviously, in the authentic us. What is that value? What does that do for the people that we interact with?
So one of the values to us for being authentic about who we really are and just being us is that creates an environment with a lot less stress and tension. When we start to become someone else, something else, we begin hiding. We begin chasing. And when that happens, we introduce into our lives and then into our personal ecosystem stress that we don't need, that is detrimental, and in time will demonstrate detrimental circumstances. Without going into a lot of detail, a lot of people who have been hiding on social media and again, I'm not criticizing social media.
Right.
It is what it is. But
it's a tool.
It is a tool. I'm not sure we always use it in the right way, but it is a tool. But you find them later in life, not even knowing who they are. You find them wishing they hadn't done this or done that. There's a lot of baggage that comes along with trying to be not authentic for whatever reason. If we're trying to, for whatever reason it is, when you do that, you pick up baggage that you've got to carry.
For the longest time, through my adolescent to teenager to even closer into my adult life, up until 3-4 years ago, I didn't realize that I was also living an inauthentic life, where I thought that I was the most authentic version of myself because I was going against the grain. But actually, me going against what I thought was against the grain was me actually going with it. I thought that I was setting myself apart, but really I was just following along with everyone else. I suffered from a lot of identity issues.
Yeah.
I suffered from, okay, who am I? And now I'm going to experiment with who I am, which to a degree almost sounds like madness. It's like I'm going to experiment to find out who I am instead of just being who I am. Why am I searching for who I am? instead of just being.
Yeah, so we experiment with who we are, trying to create who we want to be or who we think we want to be. It becomes a creation challenge, I guess, a creation task, if you want to think about it that way. We're trying to not be who we really are. And as I said a moment ago, there's baggage that comes along with that. There's personal stress, turmoil on the inside that comes along with that, because that will never end up the way you want it to end up. It will never. And so when it doesn't, when the train comes off the tracks, then you're left with starting over. But the problem is, at that point in time, you may not even have a real clue who you are.
Yeah.
Because you've run from who you are for so long. But it also has relational baggage. If you're always changing who you are, you're a moving target. People probably will shy away from you when it comes to close and intimate relationships that, as a human, we need. We are designed to have those. But when we try to be someone else, we make it impossible to have those.
It's almost like trying to take a puzzle piece and force it into a spot that it doesn't go into.
Yeah. So what happens when you do that? The corners of the puzzle piece you're trying to force into become wrinkled and broken. And that's what happens to us.
Have you ever experienced that in your personal life?
I probably have. I'm sitting here right now trying to think of times, probably in my technical career, because I traveled a lot. I was around a lot of different people. There were times, without going into details, that I wanted to project an image that was different than the image of who I really was. Did it for I would tell you noble reasons, and probably they were noble reasons, but it was still projecting someone a little bit different than I was. So when I would be standing in front of someone making presentations, trying to be one thing, knowing on the inside that I wasn't quite that person. I might not be far off, but I really wasn't quite the person I was trying to project.
But what did it feel like? As you're doing that, let's say you're giving a presentation and you're having to now be this person that you may not feel like you are inside. I mean, what does it feel like?
It feels like stress because you're hiding. And
it's almost like...
And it's a fear of being found out. It's a constant fear of being found out. That guy that's acting like one thing, we really know he's not exactly that one thing.
From my experience, when I think back to those times where I was acting like something that I wasn't, or trying to fit a puzzle piece into the puzzle that didn't fit, it was very inward facing. And the more that I tried to fit, the less I just felt very empty. Inside, it feels like someone's like wrenching and twisting and twisting. And it's almost like your guts, or you're not. It's very stressful. That's the word that you're using. It's undue stress.
It is, and you're introducing that into your life. Anytime we become inward-looking, selfish, use whatever words you want to use, it actually removes us from the very things that we need. It removes us from authentic relationships, which we need. It removes us from, it's okay to be confident, but be confident in who you are. It actually removes us from the very things that we're trying to accomplish.
So how do we do that? And I'm sure that's a very loaded question, because I have a few thoughts on it. But
how do we
be who we are?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think we have to understand who we are first, and that may require some time. That may require some just personal reflection. So crazy example, but I know I'm not a world famous physicist. Okay, I'm not an Albert Einstein.
I thought you were.
Or not. Sorry.
Oh.
That's not who I am. That is not my contribution in life. Albert Einstein had a contribution in life, but it's different than mine. Albert Einstein probably would have felt uncomfortable going into a field house full of high school football players and feeling at home. But that's who I am, and that's what I do. So how do we get there? I think we have to just stop and recognize who we are to start with, and then just be who we are everywhere we are. That is an issue that a lot of public speakers deal with. Pastors deal with that. They're on a platform, and they are even put on a platform by people who listen. They should not be, but they are at times.
Yeah.
And they can tend to become a different person in person than they are on a platform.
Then it creates that. So let's say for like a pastor's sake, right? If a pastor is having to be one way here and in his personal life, he's another way. And then maybe this is just hypothetical. Say he's out in public and someone sees him living this life that is completely different than who he is in the pulpit. I mean,
yeah, so
that's where you see.
Well, you have a mismatch of expectations. You see a lot of stress. You see a lot of fear of being, quote, found out. There's a lot of negative things that come with that. And it's a matter of integrity. You become a person who does not have integrity.
It's a good word.
Whenever you are operating that way.
And people can see through it too. Don't you believe? Like, if you're not being authentic, you think people can, they're like, something's off.
Well, they probably see through it before you see through it.
Yeah.
We're pretty good at fooling ourselves. But if you're around people, you will not fool them for long. And for you and I, that's especially true with students. You will not fool them for long at all.
You know, in the world of, I've heard this, but in the world of, being vulnerable, I've heard someone say that somebody has to go first. In order to make the room or to make the atmosphere or the environment that you're in that you want, then someone has to go first to let everyone know that it's okay. Do you have any encouragement to, you and I deal with students a lot, but students, anyone in the world, if they're wanting to start leading a more authentic and transparent life to experience that freedom, because that's what it is, it's freedom. What words of encouragement would you have for someone that's wanting to break the mold in the environment that they're in?
Yeah. So first I would say, don't wait until that moment where somebody's got to go first. That implies that you're in a situation and you're trying to decide, am I going to be who I really am or not? That is the wrong time to be trying to decide that. You need to decide that you're going to be you when you roll out of bed in the morning. That needs to become a lifestyle. It's probably not something that you roll out of bed and you get right the first time. It's something that needs to be cultivated. It's a progression. But it needs to be on the front of our minds just to be who we are and be comfortable with who we are. If living who you are becomes a lifestyle, then it's really not a matter of who's going to go first. You're always going to go first because you're going to be you, but you're not thinking about it that way. You're just being you.
Yeah.
Now, should we improve who we are? I think so in some areas.
Yeah.
There's things with attitudes and language and all that we probably need to be working on and polishing up. That's still who we are. We can be who we are while we're in a process of making who we are better. If the motivation to be better is not to be someone else, if the motivation to be better is simply to be the better you, I think that's okay. But it is a lifetime, it's a lifestyle, but it is a lifetime of living a lifestyle. You got to be you all the time.
Yeah.
And then you're not faced with a decision, who am I going to be in this situation? You already know who you're going to be. You're going to be you.
That's so good.
It's so hard.
It is hard.
It's hard.
It is hard.
But there's freedom in that. And really, that's who Jesus calls us to be, just to be us. He didn't call us to be somebody else. So anytime we try to be someone else, we're actually going against who we've been called to be in the big picture.
Well, it's kind of hard to walk in that purpose if you're walking in, using air quotes here, but someone else's purpose.
Yeah.
You're walking in someone else's purpose.
You are, and you can't do that. You can't do it well. You can try, but you can't do it well.
Yeah.
You got to be you.
It's almost like, a carpenter being a welder.
Exactly.
Well, he's not going to do very well.
No.
He might be able to.
He may do it some, but he won't do it well.
Yeah.
So you're going to be the closest to living a life of excellence when you're living a life that's you. The more you live not you, the further away from living in excellence you'll be. Because you don't know how to do that. That's not how you were designed.
So
and I don't mean excellence in a prideful way. I mean just being the best you can.
Yeah. A few years ago, the reason that this whole show started, the way that I minister to people started was, 2-3 years ago, the Holy Spirit told me that I was going to become the most authentic, transparent, and vulnerable version of myself.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, cool. I'm all for that.
Yeah. He just didn't tell you how hard that might be.
And then quickly did not realize how hard that was going to be, because the very first thing that I had to do after I received that revelation was I had to get on a stage in front of a group of strangers and tell them all my crap.
Yeah.
I had to tell them about all the wrong, all the bad, all the things that led to where I was. Mm-hmm. And then when I got done, I was like, I see what you've called me to do now.
Yeah.
That this is not going to be easy, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
There was a freedom that I experienced that is unmatched.
Yeah.
After you share your testimony. And everyone's is different.
Yeah.
Some people might compare testimonies to testimonies, and they go, "Oh, well, his is a lot worse than mine, so mine's doesn't even have value." That is the biggest lie.
Don't fall for that.
That's a lie.
Don't fall for that.
Because your authentic you was designed for someone else's authentic them.
Yeah. Don't fall for that. I think we have to be a little careful about how we in trying to be authentic, how we share things about us. You use the word share our crap. That's probably a good word. If the motivation to share our crap is to simply say, hey, I'm not hiding anymore, that's a great motivation. If the motivation to share your crap is, oh, really and truly, y'all don't even know, y'all didn't do the things I did. I'm somehow better.
Yeah.
That's not a good reason to do that. So it's like a lot of things in life. What we do really depends a lot on the motivation for our doing it. It's not that what we do is right or wrong. Is our motivation right or wrong? That's the important thing.
Well, God can see through the heart. That's
yeah.
So your motives don't fool him.
And don't fool him. That's another place where we try to fool other people is with our motives.
Yeah. So coming up real close, I know I don't want to keep you too long, but
man, I'm honored to be here.
I really enjoy. You and I were talking off camera for about 2 hours before this, and man, it was just such a good conversation. You have such a interesting outlook on life and ministry in general, and I'm inspired and I'm honored to be able to serve in ministry with you. What would any closing remarks for any of the listeners when it comes to being authentic and transparent? We've talked about, stress, and we've talked about all kinds of different things. If you could sum it all up, what encouragement would you give to someone that is today, right now, listening to this? I don't know who I am and I need help. Where do I start?
Yeah, I think the first thing I'd say is just to realize and understand this truth. It's a biblical truth that who you are is important. Who you are has great value. Who you are has a major purpose. So there's no one that will be listening that is not valuable, that's not important, that doesn't have a major purpose in life. We all do. They're just not the same. They're just not the same. So don't try to chase, as we said a moment ago, chase someone else because in your mind you think they're better in some way. They're not. You are important as you are, number one. So you just understand your value and your worth just as you are. You don't have to do anything to be valuable and worth a whole lot in God's eyes. Understand that and embrace it. So the second thing is understand it, or the first thing is understand it. Second thing is embrace it. Embrace who you are. Not in a prideful way, but embrace it. That's who you are and be confident in that. And then once you get those two, you're well down the road. And then just be a person of integrity. And all that means is, and that's a process. That's not something you're going to get right every time. But you do need to be trying to get it right. And it's simply this, that you're the same person everywhere. No matter who you're with or where you are or whether anyone's watching or not, you are you. You're not different people. Understand who you are, embrace who you are, and then just be a person of integrity, which all that simply means, it's a big fancy sounding word, but the application is real simple. You be that person everywhere. If you're in front of the President of the United States or in front of the person at McDonald's, or it doesn't matter. Just be you.
It's good. Well, Gary, I appreciate your time today. And
I'm honored, brother. Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. And I encourage you to keep this up, keep pursuing this, because I think it's important to get these kinds of messages out.
Absolutely. Well, I hope you have a great day. Hope your voice gets to feeling better. He's not sick.
I'm
right?
not sick. Please
not
hear me.
Sick,
no germs are being transmitted.
But he does have a hot cup of tea.
I do.
It's for the vocal cords.
It is for the vocal cords.
You know, I thought that you were actually going to pick that up at some point and take a sip of it, but you didn't.
I didn't, because I knew if I tried to, I'd spill it. Yeah. So I know me.
Well, you don't want to spill that on this white couch.
I know me, so I'm not going to do it.
I know somebody would be pretty upset if you spilled it on this white couch.
Indeed.
Yeah. Well, Gary, hope you have a great day. I appreciate your time. Any of the anyone who's listening, I just want to say thank you guys for sticking with me through this just process of changing the rhetoric, changing the narrative of what the world is trying to do to us. We're called to be different. We're called to be real. And we're called to talk about it. And if we're not doing those things, then we're not doing anything at all. And I hope you guys just have such a great week. And I appreciate you guys. Love you. Bye.